In Freeport, city leaders took up a resolution to censure 5th Ward Alderperson Cecelia Stacy. The request stems from a neighborhood watch meeting on May 19th. Claims say Alderperson Stacy publicly criticized city staff and presented inaccurate information regarding city police department activities, among other allegations. A motion was brought by Stacy to remove the censure resolution indefinitely, but that failed. The resolution to censure Alderperson Stacy also failed.
An alderman's decision to publicly berate or become feisty or become unprofessional or raise your voice is a decision that is unknown over matters unrelated to law enforcement, which undermines the professionalism and mutual respect necessary between elected officials and public safety personnel.
All this nonsense about me belittling or degrading or talking about bars on windows and suicide, that never even happened. But you can believe what you want to believe because you're believing a bunch of people that weren't even at the meeting.